Previously on Ship Updates. So, this week we got treated to a preview of the Banu Defender, and surprise, surprise, once again, it's the interior. It looks great. It looks fantastic. It looks detailed. It looks like an actual spaceship in as much as we can imagine an actual spaceship would look like. I really, I think it looks fantastic, but once again, dude, get us some exterior shots. Let's see what's really going on with those wings, please. So once again, we're seeing the interior of the Defender, and the interior is fantastic. Previously we had seen versions of this without the lighting and without the atmospherics. Now we're seeing something far more detailed. And, the skill of the artist is very evident in this. It's fantastic. It's well done. It has a little bit of that kind of alien, that alien spaceship from Aliens type of sensibility, but yet it's almost entirely different. It's its own thing. You can see like a little bit of the flavor, but otherwise it's an entirely different animal. And it looks great. It looks fantastic. It looks detailed. It looks like a real thing. And, the only thing that I always kind of get hung up on is it's that cockpit. What does it look like? Well, finally we got a little bit more information. But when looking at this ship and you see the beds and the space for storage and all this sort of thing, and you remember that this is a ship that's meant to escort, the Banu merchantmen. That's kind of its primary purpose. I'm starting to wonder if this ship isn't going to occupy something of a unique space amongst fighters, if this is not going to be something of a long-range ship or fighter, because why else, why would it have beds at that point? And it's supposed to escort these Banu merchantmen that are obviously, they're very large ships that are meant to travel very far. It wouldn't be much of an escort if it was, it's like, oh no, I'm under attack. And it's like, I'll be there in half an hour. Not really fulfilling its primary roles. So I'm kind of feeling like this is going to end up being not a long-range heavy fighter, but a long-range fighter. I think that that's where this ball is going to bounce. And of course, we talked about another one of these recently. And, there's an obvious appeal. I mean, even if you're buying a Defender, but you don't have a Banu merchantman, or you're not planning to escort a Banu merchantman, when you're faced with the reality of navigating around the Star Citizen universe, even navigating within a solar system, these types of features and that potential for range, if it is something that eventually, does become a reality, is a very strong asset. And that makes the Defender potentially a great fighter to have, even just for the fact that it's convenient to own, and it kind of opens up the universe where other fighters might have a much more difficult time getting you to where you need to go. Maybe this is a fighter still the size of reasonably within the size of an ordinary fighter that can do what the Vanguard can do for you. It holds a lot of potential. It holds a lot of positive potential. The only real drawback, of course, is the view. So once again, in the sneak peek, we see the Defender. Now we got an exterior shot, and it looks like no real fix for the arms is evident. It looks like it did before. And this was a problem that CIG did acknowledge and did promise a fix for. So I have to wonder if they're not going to really substantially change the physical shape of those prongs at the front of the ship. Are they going for a different solution? Are they perhaps looking towards a solution that is related to user interface? Now, some time ago, I made an episode where I was talking about the possibilities of augmented reality. Those functions, one of which was supposed to be on a variant of the Vanguard. The Vanguard Sentinel was supposed to have at least an AR system that was mentioned very briefly in the original sale materials, but since seems to have, I don't want to say disappeared, but we really haven't heard anything about that for a long time. But we've also got Zane Bien talking about, the possibility of 3D entering into the user interface. We've heard about landing systems that reflect the surface underneath the ship and aren't just, like the ones in Elite Dangerous, where you go to a space station and it more or less just shows you a generic landing pad and you kind of land on it, something that's dynamic, something that reacts to whatever's on the ground beneath you. Potentially these things are being brought together, and that's going to be part of, not just the Banu Defender, but other ships beyond that would benefit from those systems. And simply having something that reveals the outlines of ships as they're passing in front of the prongs or terrain could solve pretty much all of the Defender's real problems related to those actual structures, without compromising, I guess, the artist's intent when they created the ship. Now, of course, also there would be the issue of players bought the Defender because it was the Defender. They bought that ship the way it looked, so it would be completely inappropriate to completely change the configuration of a ship after players had bought it, right? So what you have is a pretty amazing fighter. Potentially. The problem is it has that one flaw, and it's a pretty severe flaw. To have CIG outright acknowledge the problem in the Q&A and promise a fix, and then seemingly not deliver one, is a little bit worrisome. Now, UI could solve this problem, or at least mitigate it to a large extent, but there's no guarantee that that's actually what's going to happen. So this ship, I feel that it's potentially a really great ship, but it still represents something of a roll of the dice as to where it's going to end up overall. And I would hate to see this opportunity wasted, since the potential for a great fighter is there.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.